Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original in the order of release. This episode, we have Netflix's 172nd film from 2019. It's the comedy Between Two Ferns, the movie. Directed by Scott Aukerman, it stars Zach Galifianakis, Lauren Lapkus, Ryan Gaul, and Jiavani Linayao. I'm Jesse, and I'm here with MJ. How are you?
I'm very good. This episode is going to make me feel a bit old, is maybe the word. I just remember when this film came out and we were doing the podcast, because prior to this, I was like, I won't watch this Netflix original film because we're going to cover it on the podcast shortly because we're doing them in chronological order. When this one came out, I was like, oh man, we're not going to do this film for ages, so I'm just going to watch it straight away. And now here we are. We got there. We got 172 episodes in and we're here.
Yeah, we started in 2018. We're now in 2022, so it's taken its time to get around to it. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I've seen this one. I watched it right when it came out as well. So it's good to go back sometimes and check out a film that if you have good memories of, to sort of revisit those good times.
Definitely, and this one fits perfectly into that category because it's I was certainly, when I've seen a film and you got to watch it again for the pod, I'm kind of like, I've already sat through this. With this one, it was just like, this is just 80-minute ball of fun.
Good. Well, start us off with your fast flicks, where you give us a quick summary of what this one's all about.
This is Zach Galifianakis interviews stars in his famously degrading way in the hopes of landing his own late night talk show.
Good, yeah. It's about a public broadcasting host who dreams of making it in Hollywood and having his own late night show. Good.
That's it.
Let's talk about how this one came together. Give us some background about Between Two Ferns, MJ.
Yeah, well, so Between Two Ferns, it is, I guess, an internet talk show and has been for quite a while. I think prior to this movie coming out, it was almost around a decade of interviews that Zach Galifianakis kind of does in a character, but still he is Zach Galifianakis, which kind of makes it a little bit interesting. But internet talk show where he interviews stars. Funny or Die got behind it, as you can tell when you watch the movie. Funny or Die got behind it, brought it in, got very popular, and on May 23, 2019, they announced that they were going to make a film version of Between Two Ferns, which was the name of the show, for Netflix. So the film was directed by Scott Aukerman, and again, Scott Aukerman's been across the project the entire time. He also produced it with Zach Galifianakis and a couple of others, Caitlin Daly and Mike Farrar. On June 17, 2019, they basically got in the rest of the cast. When I say the rest of the cast, I mean the three main characters that actually play a character who's not being interviewed and playing themselves. And apparently, look, this was basically just filmed like a documentary. Obviously, it's a mockumentary, if you haven't seen it. Scott Aukerman cited a couple of mockumentary films like This Is Spinal Tap, which I think he drew a lot of inspiration from in terms of the format. Borat, as well as Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. I love Popstar. I don't know if you've seen it. Popstar's a real
it's funny,
cheeky favorite of mine. Borat, you can see the Borat. You can see a lot of Borat in this film. Obviously, very different humor, but just the way that you've got a guy going around town interviewing people. There's a lot you can take out of that. But they basically just had this outline, this vague idea of what was going to happen in every single scene, and then they just set up the camera and improvise things. I think they had about 20 interviews at the end of it. Not all of them actually made it into the final movie. Adam Scott being the famous one there. This big where Adam Scott introduces himself, and you actually never see any interview with Adam Scott. So apparently there was a lot more with that never actually happened. But the film itself, the trailer itself actually released September 3, 2019. The film was released a couple of weeks later on September 20, 2019. There has been a few whispers of a sequel coming out. I think they'll had a lot of fun doing it. I think Netflix and Funny or Die would probably be up for it if Zach and Scott and the rest of the team are as well. So, it's a pretty interesting one. When I first heard this was coming out, I was like, how are you going to make a film out of this? But here it is.
Very hard to follow that up. You've covered all things pretty well. I sort of add a little bit onto that idea of using Spinal Tap as sort of inspiration, I guess, and the director, we spoke about when he was using it for inspiration, that he watched a lot of the the commentary and all the deleted scenes. And he said there's hours and hours of footage, and he did the same thing with this film. And as you mentioned, with people like Adam Scott, I think though, as well as the guy from Harold and Kumar, what was his name?
John Cho.
John Cho, as well as him. So what they did do is they put a lot of these deleted or not used interviews online. And we'll sort of see this a little bit later on when I talk about awards and things. But he stated pretty much that they wanted to do two things, which is make a movie that had these brief glimpses of the interviews and then the specific episodes for the internet as well. So it was almost like they were making the movie as well as this extra footage for extra use anyway at the same time, which is a different sort of way of making a film, I guess, at times. Which makes
perfect sense though for this format, when the internet talk show or TV show, whatever you want to call it, is literally interviews. In a weird way, this is almost like a documentary. Like it's a mockumentary, but in a weird way, they're just kind of filming the behind the scenes of how they're actually making this. And obviously, there is a bit of a script, and it's all sort of a bit batshit crazy, but it works. It makes perfect sense for them to do it that way.
There were several ideas too that Galifianakis had that he ended up using for one of his TV shows called Baskets a little bit later on. Tagline. Did you say the tagline for this one?
I did not.
No. So the tagline for this is "There's nowhere he won't go."
No, I guess I've seen that. Actually.
That's not too bad because it talks about the travel, obviously, and the questions in the interview. So not too bad. There's only one good translation for this across the world. There's only one good in the United Arab Emirates. It's called "Hold Your Nerve." So, so I guess it's talking about the celebrities holding their nerve and not lashing out at him. I don't know. It's
a bit hard when this is like a recognized brand to really mess with that title.
Yes, correct. So as I mentioned before, a few awards. So it won the Online Film Critics Society Award for the best non-theatrical release. It was nominated for the Location Manager of the Year for an independent film. And the other one that's the interesting one that ties in a little bit. So it actually won an Emmy for Outstanding Short Form Variety Series. And that's from the parts that didn't actually appear in the movie. So the parts that appeared online. So it's a part of that Emmy, I guess, because they filmed that footage for this film anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting little story. I had a percentage match for this. Did you? Even though I'd already watched it.
That's not. I really wanted to watch it again. No, I didn't have one.
I got 71%. So I don't know what I don't know what I did. Maybe I didn't give it the thumbs up. I didn't give it the thumbs down. They just didn't remember that I watched it.
They're like, he watched it. Did he like it? We don't know if he liked it or not. We got to try this out again.
Well, segue into what's the general public saying? What are the critics and the audience are saying, MJ?
The general public on IMDb is sitting at a 6.1 out of 10 from 30,000 ratings. Not bad. You'd take that, I think. A bit lower on Letterboxd at a 2.8 out of 5, but it's got nearly 48,000 ratings on Letterboxd. So I would be surprised if this film was, shooting 3.5 or above. It's just not that kind of movie. Even the people who like it aren't going to give it 5 stars. So I think they'd be happy with that.
Good. This on Rotten Tomatoes is certified fresh. It's been a while since we've had actual certified fresh. 75% on 60 critic reviews. The audience had it a fair bit lower at 43%. That's on a bit over 250. So critics didn't mind this one.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. Let's lead into our early thoughts. What are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I don't actually understand what people would can this movie. Like this, it's exactly what you expect it to be. This is 80 minutes of Zach Galifianakis humor combined with these really high-level celebrities who are genuinely being good sports in it all. Like, I don't know what's not to like, and I don't know how you can go into this movie and not expect that, because it delivers on exactly what you expect. I'm a big Zach Galifianakis fan. That brand of humor just works for me. I think it's probably 4 or 5 movies that I've seen purely just because he's in it, and I want to see that humor. I think I love The Campaign. I think it's such a funny film. His character in that is absolutely fantastic. But even things like Due Date and Dinner for Schmucks and Keeping Up with the Joneses, all these movies I saw just because he's in them. I just think he's funny. And whilst, I didn't really know that we needed a Between Two Ferns movie, I was very happy to receive it. Yeah,
like we've said already, I'd seen it too. And I have a bit of a habit that I tried to start a few years ago where if I watch something on Letterboxd, I'll watch something and on Letterboxd, I just write like a line or something just to refresh my mind about what the film was about. So I went back on Letterboxd just to check what I'd put on there. So going way back to the 24th of September, 2019. So it's that 4 days after it came out. My comments were, the interviews are really good. The side story is quite nice too, and I think my thoughts haven't really changed.
Yeah. I did read that. I must admit, I read that this week.
So that's a positive. My thoughts haven't changed. So let's lead into the characters. It's a bit hard to talk too much about characters in this, but go for it.
Yeah, I like this whole Zach character, because it's kind of weird because he's playing himself, but he's playing a character of himself. So it's a bit meta in that sense, and all the interviewees know him. But the appearance that the mockumentary gives you is that they know him from Between Two Ferns, not the fact that he is the star of like the highest grossing R-rated comedy of all time, and obviously a big name in the comedy world. Like that's not the Zach Galifianakis that's in the movie. It's kind of more just like, it's Between Two Ferns. I'd love to be on this show, which is interesting. So I guess you got to think of Zach as like a different character.
Yeah.
He's got like this childlike intellect. He's a diva. It's probably not the most obvious way to describe him, but he is a massive diva. He kind of spends this film, or his arc in this film is having him grow up and realizing the value of friendship and understanding, what it takes to be true to yourself, and that you might have this physical dream of doing something, but maybe that's not exactly what you wanted to do. So that's kind of Zach in a nutshell.
Yeah, he sort of has that underdog sort of character trait as well, I guess, where even though he dreams of being a big personality, at times he's got a really hard personality to get along with as well. So it's a tricky line to play, because at times, like, there could be people that would completely hate this character because of the way he is, but they do a good job of getting you on board and believing this underdog sort of story, because of, I guess, that he doesn't have that ability to uphold celebrities, even though his dream is that he wants to be one and have this late night talk show. So it's a fine line. Like this sort of character could be complete rubbish and people could absolutely hate it, but they have a way of Zach Galifianakis in particular has a really good way of still having a lot of heart in a lot of those side scenes as well, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone else you wanted to talk about?
I think maybe Carol is someone that you could take a little bit out of.
Yep.
You feel like she kind of gets it. Like, she loves this gig. She's really good at it. And the only thing I could think is that she could probably be doing anything, but she doesn't believe she's good enough to be doing anything. And she's just so damn loyal. And like, this just doesn't work without a character like that. And that's just not much more else to say, but she's great.
And like Zach's character couldn't function without her either. So, and I think it's really good that she sort of brings the nice moments in that film too, in that loyalty that she shows and never losing faith in him. But I've got to say, she's a horrible trumpet player. So sometimes don't follow your dreams.
It's funny how you say about Zach's character being real hit or miss. You could either hate him or love him. It's what I kind of liked about the other two side characters. And all I can really say, and I didn't really know that her name was Boom Boom. Was that her name? Was it?
Yeah,
yeah, Boom Boom and
it was like a quick little shot with the name on the thing.
But Boom Boom, when she first came on, it was nice to have someone that likes Zach, because there is this endearing nature to him. But on the flip side, when Cam came on, it was kind of nice to see someone who thought Zach was this obnoxious prick, because he is as well. So it was good you could lean on both of them and go, okay, he gets it, and she kind of gets it too. So this guy isn't. We're not living in this universe where everything is kind of backwards.
And even with Will Ferrell, like, he's meant to be the villain or the head honcho, the sleazy sort of guy. Like, the types of roles he's played, so you don't necessarily hate the character anyway. But I thought it was, that sort of highlights the industry a little bit with him chasing that cash and the mention of drug problems too. So it is a little bit of a commentary on celebrityism as well throughout, which we'll probably touch on later.
It is a massive commentary on that. And I think every single person who jumps in and gets interviewed is fueling that fire.
Good. All right. Director Scott Aukerman, anything that you found about him?
Look, he's obviously got a little bit of a background in comedy and writing and directing, a lot of TV sort of stuff. But I think the main thing is he's done all the Between Two Ferns shows, and he's been on this journey the whole time. But, he's got his fingers in a lot of pies, it seems.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of interesting to see that, while this is his first feature, done a lot of writing for a lot of those award shows like the Emmys and the Oscars and the Golden Globes and quite a bit of acting when he was a bit younger too. I saw he was the young Nigel and Goldmember from Austin Powers, which I was like, that's quite funny. So yeah, anyway, it looks like he's sort of done the done the hard road to get to where he wants to be.
Yeah, he's just a big comedy man. It seems he's all in on the comedy route.
Good. All right, let's attack some scenes, and I don't know how we want to do this because obviously you've got the interviews and then you've got the little scenes in between. I've sort of just mashed them all together, I guess.
I think I haven't done a great job. I sort of picked out a few moments that made me laugh because this film itself doesn't have these big scenes that tie everything together. This film is about like the laughs that you get pretty consistently throughout the film. And I think I've picked out 4 moments that probably made me laugh more than anything else. And you're going to talk about things that are going to make me laugh still. So it's going to work out well. But
well, let's hope you haven't got the 4 that I've got.
These are all moments, like they're lines or just little moments. And the first thing that really got me laughing, and not to mention I laughed the whole film, but these things got me to a next level, is when Zach just pulled out a lint roller on his pockets and on his shoes. I just think that just highlights this character's an idiot. He's such an idiot. Who puts a lint roller on your pockets? I thought the pocket was almost funnier than the shoes because the shoes are too far. But it's like, geez, I got a little lint in my pockets.
Okay, 0 from 1 so far.
Good, I'm glad. You mentioned John Cho, how he was in it, but he wasn't. His interview wasn't in it. He was honestly in this film for maybe 4 seconds, and his line was almost the best line of the entire film. It's just like he's shooting at the background. He's talking to Boom Boom, I think, and he just says, "Do you like swimming? I got a lot of bathing suits in the car," and that's it. And then it cut. I talk about these celebrities being good sports. What a great line. What a sleazy, gross line. And he just sells it as if like, this is my thing. I go up to girls and I ask them if they want some bathing suits. Oh, so good. The other one is when Zach was nervous. I think it was for the John Legend interview, and they're like, "What's wrong, mate? You all right?" And he's just like, "Oh no, I've got the pre-show shitters instead of the pre-show jitters." And Galifianakis just does his stuff so well. The pre-show shitters, and doesn't like pick up on it and change it. And probably the last thing that I really laughed at was, I think it was Tiffany Haddish, maybe Tiffany Haddish, where was it Tessa Thompson? Either way, one of them found out that she was a foster child. And he's like, "Oh, that's great. Can you just go foster beer, the best beer for foster kids?"
I think it was Aquafina.
Aquafina, so I couldn't remember what it was.
Because I've got that in my scenes I didn't like.
Because there's a line. I don't think he quite crosses it with that. I think it's all right. I think it's so funny. But yeah, that were the things that really got me laughing.
Good. A few of mine, I've just taken like the direct lines of the questions, I guess, because most of them are the questions that make me laugh. So let's start off with Matthew McConaughey, like just the impersonation where Zach Galifianakis goes, all right. And like, it's like, that's Matthew McConaughey. And then like, he's like, box office returns for your last 3 movies. And I just like, thought it was hilarious. And then like continue on with like, is it you or Christian Bale going to starve yourself to death first and thought you might die from fake AIDS? And then even the flooding, like that still was funny. Like floating around in the studio. Keanu Reeves, the question was, you have a scar from a motorcycle accident? And he goes, I have a scar too. I walked out of the lake house and bumped into the seat in front of me. I remember I went on a date to see that movie back when it came out, and just the lake house. So there's one of our close friends. There was one time he was at my house and he organized a date. So me and my dad dropped him off at this date to see the lake house. And then we went and picked him up afterwards. It was anyway, the lake house, good movie.
That is so weird.
Chance the rapper, just you're friends with Kanye. That's a joke. Like, just say so good.
When he says, "Do you think if your parents didn't name you Chance the Rapper, you probably would have done something else
different?" Brie Larson, you won Best Actress. Have you ever thought of trying to go something higher and win Best Actor?
Oh, that's so good.
And then like just asking her, when did you get your first period? Just was like, oh my god, like they are such good sports, these celebrities.
What's the setup for that question? How he's like, you mentioned that you don't
you don't like talking about embarrassing things or something.
Like, no, you like personal things. And the second part of the question is, when did you get your first period?
David Letterman, just like calling him Santa with an eating disorder, and you love fast cars. In what other ways is your penis small? It was great. It was so good. These ones. So Carol saying, like, sitting there and going, "Oh, Jake Gyllenhaal had to cancel because he spelled his name wrong on the ticket." Like, the amount of times I've had to spell Jake Gyllenhaal's name like on the whiteboard at school, it's hilarious. Like, it just made me laugh so much because I know you got to put so many A's in there. It's just, it was so good.
That was good.
Haley Steinfeld, you're in Pitch Perfect 2 and 3. Did you ever wish you're in the good one?
It's such a great question.
It is. It's so true as well. Benedict Cumberbatch during that interview, it wasn't necessarily to Benedict Cumberbatch, but Zach Galifianakis did the thing like he's pretending he was Van Gogh answering the phone, and it's just like the phone on one ear and then the phone on the other ear. It's just, it was so funny. I thought it was hilarious.
Cumberbatch was really good. That interview in general was really good.
Tessa Thompson, when he's like, "You're in Creed," and obviously we're talking about Creed the movie, and then he like asks about the band. It's great.
He's like, "It's your lead singer."
I thought the fishing on the lake scene was actually quite a nice moment between Zach and Carol. That was nice. And the last one, Peter Dinklage. You're an X-Men. You know who my favorite X-Men is? Caitlyn Jenner.
And then he that's the level of like, have I crossed the line? He's like, oh no, I really thought she was in the
just such good one-liners. So that's me done with the things they're all the things that made me laugh. So it was excellent. Is there anything in here
apparently,
that you did?
Apparently what they do is they have like the morning of an interview, they have like 10 pages of jokes, jokes. And it's done with Scott Aukerman, Zach Galifianakis, and another one of the producers. They write all these jokes. They go through them all. They cut it down to about 3 pages of the ones that are really good. But then Zach just goes off and improvs a lot of it as well. And there's points within the interview where Scott has to like prod Zach and be like, "Look, what you're doing is great, but like there's some really good jokes on there that you've missed." So you got to make sure you get them out as well. But like it just seems like so much fun.
All right. Is there anything you didn't like in this?
The only thing I didn't like was the Will Ferrell stuff. I thought this sounds silly because it's a silly film, but he was a bit too much. I think he just took it too far. Clearly, everything was improv, and that's great, and I love it. But I think he just didn't quite land with me, and I thought it was just a bit too silly.
It was like that character in the Lego Movie. Have you seen the Lego Movie? It was literally the same character. Which is fine in a kid's film when you've got this villain that you don't want to be too villainous because you want to keep it PG, but it just didn't really work.
He couldn't think of any other insult apart from fat and idiot, and he just kept calling him fat. And like Zach Galifianakis, he's a bit fat, but like it's not like his defining trait. Like he's not like massive. He's just a bit cuddly.
The one scene in particular with Will Ferrell that really just didn't land for me was when he was like knighting him or christening him with the sword. Like I was like, it just wasn't funny.
Nah, and clearly again, all improv. Like that was absolutely not in the script, and they just went with it like, "Ah, shit, well that's all we've got, so let's go into the movie."
The Chrissy Teigen and John Legend stuff. Neither of us had them in our laugh out loud moments. So for me, they weren't great. I don't know. Didn't really land.
Weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. Especially like the recording. Like I know like Zach asked them to make sure they record every moment, but it just the last or the parts that were meant to find funny just didn't really land in those for me. Interestingly,
that was probably one thing that was in the script. There's probably like there's probably like key plot points that they've put in, and that would have been one. I thought that was going to be a greater repercussion or a funnier repercussion than him just getting sprayed down his pants and things like that. Like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Themes, ideas. What's the message of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, look, the obvious ones are the idea of staying true to who you are, and it's nice that there is a theme of this film, as opposed to just being a bunch of gags. This whole film is about obviously the friendships and the importance of them, and discovering that they do exist when you didn't think you had them. But yeah, as I said, staying true to who you are and not forgetting where you came from. And I think that whole big idea that this is what he wanted to do, and then when he got there, he realized that he couldn't actually be himself and do it, so he didn't want to do it, and that's really important to discover. But then, like you touched on, there's so much of a commentary on the idea of celebrity, and these interviews that take place. So the celebrities are really good sports too, because again, they're not. These aren't scripted interviews. Their reactions aren't scripted. It's they're playing a character as well. They're playing themselves, but they're playing a character of themselves. Because they were sitting there with Zach Galifianakis, and he was John Hamm. John Hamm's kind of the only one that like had a bit of fun with it, and that's good as well. It's good to see a different part of it. Like Matthew McConaughey got pissed off, like he got so pissed off, and it's fun seeing all that because it just shows you like it's just not real. The interviews that you see so often, they just aren't real. The celebrities that we see just aren't real. And I'm not saying these are the real celebrities either, but it's a nice insight on that and why we do things a certain way when he's asking questions that we find funny, but they're funny because they're true. Like the Pitch Perfect question. I would love someone to ask her that. Like, hey, what did you think, Haley? What did you think of the first Pitch Perfect? Because it's probably better than the other two. I guess that's why it works. I don't know.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's that idea too that, you often hear about celebrities that only do an interview if they get the questions in advance so they can rehearse it and prepare it. And it is nice to see that comparison. Well, you see it at the end in that talk show that he finally does get, like the ridiculousness of it or the over the top, the DJ, the fake applause, the laughter. And, I'm sure we've all been in studio audiences at certain stages and what you do as a member of the audience, for not even being a celebrity, it's all so prepared and so planned. And it's a bit like the culture too of the lifestyles of some of these characters. And, Peter Dinklage in that big ranch or whatever it was, and the golden eggs and things like this, like, you'd like to think that that's not what he's like in real life, but that's definitely what some celebrities are like. And I'm sure Zach Galifianakis could talk about 100 different people he's met that are exactly like that. So, and you touched on these already, but that idea of loyalty to yourself, to your friends, to others, and following your dreams, knowing who you are. These guys were misfits. They're the crazy ones. That's okay. Don't give up on that. Stick to who you are. And we see that in him walking away from the dream that he's had for all his life at the end and being like, no, I'm good at what I do. I'm going to stick with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. The other point about celebrity talk shows and interviews is that celebrities don't do interviews unless they have something to plug. Like, like there's always like if you watch the Tonight Show or any late night talk show, the celebrity's on there. It's like, oh, by the way, and he's got a movie coming out next week. Talk about the movie a little bit. Like that's the only reason they're on there. They don't want to talk about them. Like, why would they? They want to be as private as they possibly can be. So it's all an act.
Well, what did you take away from this film?
I think this film becomes very rewatchable because I forget the actual details and the jokes pretty quickly after I've watched it, which means every couple of years I can put it on and I can have these renewed laughs because I know I find it funny without it being, this really obvious gag. And I think that's greatly helped by the fact that it's got an 80-minute runtime. I watched this while my infant daughter was napping because she had a 90-minute nap time and I could watch a movie in that time. Like, how insane is that? But that's why this movie works as well. Apparently the first cut was 3 hours long because they had so many interviews and things like that. And I'm not going to watch a 3-hour mockumentary of this. So it's important to consider that runtime.
Yeah, a good point. I sort of mentioned this before. I can completely understand why someone might not like this film. I think like you have to be in on the humor, and if you don't find these types of jokes or situations funny, then you're going to sit there and go, "This is the biggest load of garbage I've ever seen in my life." So you need to know what type of humor you like to enjoy this.
True, but you should know that going into it.
Yes. Yeah, you don't. Well, yeah, you'd hope so. But who knows? People going through Netflix might just be like, "Oh, Zach Galifianakis, haven't heard of that guy. Check it out." And they might be like, "Oh, what is this?" So, yeah. True. Did you go onto IMDb to check anyone out?
No, I didn't actually.
The band in the bar. There was like a bar scene where they were sort of having a nice moment together, and there's this chick singing, and I was like, "Her voice sounds so familiar." And I looked them up. Her name's Phoebe Bridges, and the guy was called Matt Berenger, and it's like they were two people from two separate bands. And the idea was that the song that they actually wrote, that song that they sang for this movie called "Walking on a String." Never heard of either of them, but yeah, I just thought it was her voice just sounded so familiar, but no, didn't know them. But
it was quite a folky song, wasn't it?
Yeah. So an original song for this film.
There you go. Who would have thought? They've pulled together two people from a band to write an original song for the Between Two Ferns movie.
It's crazy. Any questions that you want to ask?
Had you watched the Between Two Ferns internet show or the interviews that he'd had online prior to watching the movie? Actually,
Yeah, I hadn't like religiously watched all of them or anything like that, but I've seen heaps of them. I don't think they haven't done one for a few years now.
No, I don't think they had either. But obviously, I haven't seen any of the full interviews from this movie. I don't even know where I'd find them. I should look because they would be good.
Well, they're all on that Funny or Die YouTube channel.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Yeah. One question. Do you know what happened to the Jewish guy when he walked into a wall with a full erection?
Was this in the bloopers or the actual?
Oh, yeah, it was in the bloopers.
As he broke his nose.
Yeah. Paul Rudd told that joke. Yeah, that was it.
Paul Rudd didn't want to like get annoyed at Zach. Like it just didn't feel natural to him to get annoyed at Zach, and you could see in the bloopers, God, they were having so much fun.
Yeah, it looked like a blast. We're almost ready to finish this then, I think. We'll give our rating out of 5 and see if we've got a similar average.
I mean, like, there's just not much more to say. I knew this was never going to be a particularly long podcast episode. I think we've covered it well. But if you like the Zach Galifianakis brand of humor, then just sit back and have a laugh. It also shouldn't be undersold how enjoyable it is watching these celebrities get pissed off and play it up, because they're just such good sports. Like these questions are so good. Like they're just so derogatory sometimes, and like even Matthew McConaughey, all right. Like it's just like he knows his last few films probably happening. For me, I like it. It's 3.5 stars comfortably.
Yeah, I think like recently in particular, I found it really hard to find a comedy that gives so many laughs, and this one gave a heap, which was really, really good to see. And like I mentioned at the start too, the nice little story of the journey that the team, the 4 of them, take together throughout. Like, and we didn't really touch on that a lot in our favorite scenes or anything like that, but it was all pretty well or nicely done as well. And yeah, hits the mark for me too, 3.5 too. So 3.5 is a very good score.
Good average. You struggled with the average last week, so this is good.
Didn't have to do any maths. That's what I like. Social media, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, and we have Instagram. And this sort of harps on a little bit to what you mentioned before. What's the best Between Two Ferns interview that you've seen? If not necessarily from the movie, but what's a good one that you've seen? There's from one of the ones that I enjoyed. There was it might have been 4 or 5 years ago, the Academy Awards. He did this one where he like sat there and they just walked in people that were nominated for awards. So there's like 6, 7 people in like 3 minutes that just walk through. That were good, those ones.
I'm pretty sure he did an Obama one.
And he actually got invited to the White House to do that. So they did it in the White House. Yeah. And like
that's amazing.
From memory, the end of it, the curtain like that he's got behind it goes up, and they're actually like sitting in like one of the rooms in the White House.
That is
Obama was a good sport in that too.
Oh, he's a good sport in general.
And that was when he was still president. Yeah, because he was pumping up his healthcare. Yeah, I remember.
That's right. Yeah, there was one bit I'm like, this is probably the main reason that you're doing this.
And there's a good Bieber one too, I think, from memory. Okay. Yeah, worth checking out. Go back and look at him.
I want to see the Adam Scott one and the John Cho one too.
John Cho one, yeah, definitely. We're back again next week. Where the genre for next week's a little bit different. It's a sci-fi thriller from 2019. And I remember when this came out. Sorry, this is another one of those ones that I probably sat on and didn't watch. It's called In the Shadow of the Moon. It's directed by Jim Mickle, stars Boyd Holbrook, Cleopatra Coleman, and one of my favorites, Michael C. Hall. So,
God, who names their daughter Cleopatra?
It's a very good question. I think there's a Cleopatra movie coming out soon. Another one.
I wonder if she's playing it.
It'd be handy. Just don't have to type. Just copy and paste. Oh God. So that'll be good. Michael C. Hall. Yes, I'm on board.
Cool. Yeah, it's a change of pace, but I like a change of pace. That's why we do this.
Good. All right. Well, as usual, it's been a good chat, and it's always nice to have some scenes that make us laugh.
Yeah, it's so good to talk back on them. I'm just laughing thinking about them.
Yeah, good. All right, and I will see you next week.
See you then.